Let's take a look at logging in Python. Now, what is logging in Python? Logging is essentially a way of keeping track of your program while it executes. This is essential because while running bigger programs or bigger softwares, it is very important to keep track of what all processes are going on when your program is executed, because this will help you in finding errors and debugging and improving your code by simply looking at the track of the record of logs. So how can we implement logging? For this, I'm opening a new file. I'm saving it as log example.py. Now for logging, you have to import the logging, and the different levels of logging that are available are critical. So I'm also passing in a message. So the first one's critical. Then we have error. Then we have warning. Then comes info. So we're simply listing all the logging options out, and the last one will be debug. Great. So here what I have done is I have imported the logging module, and I have simply listed out all the logging levels available to us, and we will just try to run this program. So here you can see the output is critical, error and warning. The root is printing out these logging messages for us, and you can see that even though I have passed in 5 statements for the logging options, the output is showing us the statements till warning only. This is because by default the logging level of our programs in Python is set to warning. So everything below the warning message in my program will not be printed. Now let's see how we can use logging with a log file, and we can also change the level of logging according to our needs. So what I am doing is I am simply using a statement called logging.basicconfig. The parameters that you need to send in are file name, and I'm calling my file as file.log. So .log is the extension used for log files, and here we'll set the level as logging dot whatever level we want to set. So here I'll set the level as suppose warning. Mind you, you have to pass this value in all caps. Great. So if we run this program, you'll see that we did not get any output here on the console, because all of the logs will be stored in the log file that we created, file.log. And if you can see, in our current working directory, a file called file.log has been created, and if I open it, you will see that critical, error and warning logs have been stored. This is because I set the logging level to warning, and all the logging messages up till warning have been stored in the log file. Now if I change the logging level to, let's say, debug, so again you have to pass the value in all caps, and if I run the program, once again you won't get any output here on the console because everything has been logged into the file. And here you can see, so up to line 3, 1, 2 and 3 are the logs of the previous program run, and from line 4 to line 8 is what has been logged into the file after we ran it recently. So here you can see critical, error, warning, info and debug logs have been stored into the file. So this is how you can use a log file to essentially log in all the processes and the steps that go in when you're executing a Python program. Now the question arises, what is the use of such logging methods if we don't use it with some real-time examples? So let's create another file, a Python file, and I am calling this logging, again logging example .py. Yeah, so here what we're going to do is we are going to use logging along with an exception handling example. So as we saw in the previous video, I'll just quickly make like a small example. So let's call this function, a function called func, and I'm simply declaring two variables, a which stores the value 12, b which stores the value 0, and I am going to try something which is forbidden. So I am going to try and print the value of a divides b. So as you can see that the value of b is 0 and this division is forbidden. So this will result in an error. So I will try to handle that error. I am calling function from within the try block, and here I have the except block, and in except what we are doing is we are printing an error message called division by 0 is forbidden. Great. And what we are doing here is the finally block, which we know will always be executed. So I'm simply printing ending message. So let's call it the end. Great. So let's just try and see. Yeah, so you can see that our program ran into an error, and the output is division by 0 is forbidden and the end. Now how can I use logging with this function, with this program, sorry. So as we saw in this example, the logging example, I have imported the logging module, and I'm configuring it with a log file so that all the logs essentially get stored inside that log file. So I am going to copy these two statements, and you simply have to include those statements along with your exception handling program. Now what I did here is I am importing the logging module and I am configuring it with the file.log file, and the level of logging is at the maximum, so debug. And yeah, and now how can we use this to see the processes? So let me include a logging message along with the exception handling blocks. So in the except block I am using the error log, and I am printing division by 0. So let's run this program. So you can see that here we have received the normal outputs as we were already receiving in our console. But now if I open the log file, you can see that so from lines 1 to 8 is are the logs of the previous executions, but the 9th line, which says error root division by 0, is the log which was recently stored because our logging example program ran into an error because we were trying to divide by 0. So let's make this clear. I'm going to delete this log file. Yeah, so now we don't have any log file, and I'm starting afresh with this logging example, this Python code. So let's run it again. So you can see that it ran again. We again received the usual messages: division by 0 is forbidden, and the end. And now you can see that a file.log has been created afresh. And yes, so you can see that the error message that we see, division by 0. So when we ran our program, all the processes have been logged in into the file. And yeah, so this is how you can configure a logging file with your Python program when you're handling exceptions and dealing with errors. And on the larger scale, this essentially cuts down on the time that you spend in finding errors, debugging your code, and makes the entire process much more efficient.